Adam here, bringing you the Greater Brisbane update for 2025, week 45. This one is one you really don't want to miss, as there's quite a lot of pretty big updates, including updates on housing price rises in each of the area's 5 local government areas, changes to laws, updates on major projects, inquiry findings, sad farewells, and much, much more. This update is sponsored by YB Painting and Wise and Silent Travel Insurance, 2 fantastic local businesses that are each offering you an exclusive discount as viewers of the Brisbane channel. But let's get to the updates. We often talk about how much property and rental prices have risen in Greater Brisbane, but this week we have figures on residential land prices in each LGA, and the figures actually surprised me. Property advisors Oliver Hume have released their Market Insight report for the September quarter, which breaks down changes in residential land prices in various regions, including southeast Queensland. The median price for a plot in our part of the world was over $483,000, averaging over $1,100 per square metre. But it's the breakdown of the broader area into the individual LGAs that is the interesting part. Surprisingly, comparing the September quarter this year with the same period last year, Brisbane's land values only rose by 1.5%. This is absolutely dwarfed by the other LGAs. Moreton Bay was the highest out of the Greater Brisbane Shires at over 25%, followed by Ipswich, Logan and the Redlands. Despite the rises, Ipswich and Logan's median prices were the lowest in the region, both below $450,000, which makes sense as they're also delivering more new land lots than any of the other LGAs. The average annual increase for southeast Queensland was 27%, with the Gold Coast's 31.2% rise contributing to the region's particularly high figures. Their median price was $685,000, up $190,000 on last year. Whether you're building on a new lot or own an established home, you definitely don't want to ignore the special festive discount viewers of the Brisbane channel can get with YB Painting Services. They recently won first or second place in 5 different categories of the Master Painters Australia Queensland Awards for 2025, and when you see their professionalism and the quality of their work, it's no surprise. With fixed pricing and a 5-year warranty on all their work, you can be sure there'll be no unpleasant surprises. Claim your 15% discount by scanning this QR code or the link in the video description by New Year's Day. Next, a few statewide updates that affect people living in Greater Brisbane. Firstly, a nation first. A new law has been passed that authorises GPs to initiate, adjust and continue prescriptions for ADHD medications for adults from the 1st of December this year. Queensland is the first to initiate such a law, with it coming into effect on December the 1st, but similar laws are being proposed or are scheduled to come into effect in 2026 in other states. In most states, prior to GPs being given the authority, ADHD medication could only be prescribed by psychiatrists or paediatricians, and sometimes by neurologists. Other new laws that were passed this week include a set of laws that give Queensland Health new powers to respond to illegal tobacco and vape dealers. The department can now close down an illegal business for 3 months without taking the matter to court. They can now seize all products in a store that sells illegal products, including the legal items such as lollies, that's sweets or candy for any non-Aussies, food and other goods, including nangs, which are canisters of nitrous oxide. Queensland Health can now also conduct undercover operations at illicit tobacco and vape stores. Also, landlords can terminate the lease for their premises if notified the tenant is selling illicit products, and it's now an offence to knowingly let out a store to a tenant selling illegal tobacco. The last of the broader updates before we get to the LGA specific ones are about pay negotiations of some of our state's most important workers. Firstly, ambulance workers. This week, 85% of Queensland Ambulance Service paramedics and frontline officers voted to accept an 8% pay increase over 3 years. The new agreement also features attraction and retention incentives for those working in rural and remote locations, as well as allowances for staff working night shifts. This comes not long after an analysis of Queensland Health's workforce found that the department is failing to supply enough health workers to meet demand. And the issues attracting and retaining staff are not just about the pay. Workplace culture, career pathways and leadership were all found to be contributing to an exodus of workers from health settings. But it's not just health workers that feel dissatisfied with their working conditions. Queensland teachers have still not reached an agreement with the Department of Education over wages and conditions. They'll be walking off the job once again on Tuesday the 25th of November. The Queensland Teachers Union have said that the strike does not need to go ahead and that all it would take is for the state ministers to return to the negotiating table. If an agreement is not reached, the matter will proceed to arbitration, which means that both the Teachers Union and the government present their arguments to the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission, and the Commission will make a final binding decision that both parties must follow. The arbitration process can take months or even years. Until a new agreement is certified, the previous agreement will remain in effect. We'll get to the LGA specific updates now, but first a shout out to the other sponsor of this video. If you're planning to travel overseas, for total peace of mind, you'll need to take out travel insurance. And Wise and Silent Travel Insurance was the winner of Best International Travel Insurance for Value in Finder's 2024 Travel Insurance Awards. Not only that, but they're a local Brisbane company. Wise and Silent won the 2024 Value Award because it costs less on average but covers you for more. They're also the official travel insurance provider for Australian passengers on Scoot Airlines. Backed by a global insurance provider and a 24/7 medical assistance team, the rave reviews on Trustpilot confirm that you can travel with total peace of mind if you choose Wise and Silent for your next overseas trip. Click this QR code or the link in the video description to get an exclusive 10% discount on your premium. Let's start the LGA specific updates in Brisbane. This week, plans for what is being called an extension to Queen Street Mall were revealed. As part of the Cross River Rail project, Albert Street will be transformed into a new lifestyle precinct between Elizabeth Street and the new Albert Street Cross River Rail station. We'll see the first stage in December this year when 2 new footpath dining sections will open between Elizabeth and Charlotte Streets. The remaining sections will be completed over the following months, with retail dining and activations initially between Elizabeth and Charlotte Streets and then between Charlotte and Mary Streets. The plan is to eventually have a walkable link between Roma Street Parklands and the City Botanic Gardens. I was going to share an update on a range of transport projects in Brisbane that are laid out in a document called Race to Gold, as there have been some updated progress reports. It includes the Story Bridge restoration, metro bus network expansion, and even the establishment of air taxis, but I realised that the topic is quite big and deserves its own dedicated video, so make sure you're subscribed and have hit the bell to enable all notifications so you don't miss out, as I've got a lot of topical videos on the list to produce to get out to you. They'll most likely start appearing in mid-December and early 2026. This week, figures have come out showing changes in bus travel times and passenger numbers before and after this year's bus network changes in Brisbane. So have things become better or worse with the new metro buses and big changes to many bus routes? Well, it all depends on who you ask. TransLink figures that compare July to September in 2024 with the same period this year show that journeys were about 2 minutes faster after the changes than before. Brisbane City Council says that since the changes, travel times between Queen Street and South Bank stations have become almost 45% faster. There was also a 17% increase in the number of journeys on Brisbane buses, but an important thing to keep in mind is that the 50-cent fares were introduced in August of 2024, so it's difficult to know how much of the increased patronage is due to the network actually being better and how much is because it's become more affordable to take a bus. TransLink customer service surveys of Southeast Queensland bus passengers rose from 3.75 out of 5 to 4.1 out of 5 from July to September this year. But Brisbane City Council's opposition leader Jared Cassidy says that the feedback from Brisbane residents in a survey they conducted tells an entirely different story. The average rating given the Brisbane bus network out of 361 respondents was 1.4 out of 10. They say 70% of respondents said their commute time had increased, and half of them said the number of transfers they had to perform had also increased. The difference in the results of the various surveys is not surprising, however, as the invitation flyer to give feedback in the opposition's survey said, "Are you unhappy with the LNP's bus network changes? You can have your say." So the high proportion of negative responses is not necessarily reflective of the mood of the entire Brisbane community. The survey was specifically targeting those who were dissatisfied. Now, I don't want to give the impression I'm denying the experience of people who are not being well served by the bus network, and I'll explain my position in the My 2 Cents segment later in the video. While surveys conducted by RACQ indicate strong support for the Brisbane Metro bus network, RACQ's head of public policy says that the bus network changes have not had an impact on road congestion in Brisbane and surrounds, and that the changes fall short of the level of transformation to the bus network across the broader area that they advocate for. If you find these updates helpful, do give them a thumbs up. It's such a simple thing, but it makes a massive difference to the reach of these videos. If you really want to say thanks for the days of work that goes into each of these videos, you can use this link to buy me a coffee, or you can become a channel member to get access to extra content, early ad-free access to the videos, and more. A big thanks to all of these members for their continued support. One of Brisbane's great assets is our public parks, and you're invited to share your views on plans for a handful of parks across the city, with consultation opening up in the last week. These include major upgrades at Carindale Recreation Reserve, including a space-themed playground, multi-use riding tracks, and new barbecues and fitness equipment, along with enhancements to 4 other parks either side of the river. The best way to find the place to have your say is to go to the Brisbane City Council website and use the search function by entering the name of the park you want to comment on. We'll move to Ipswich now. You may remember me mentioning an independent public health inquiry into the odours from Swanbank and New Chum industrial areas and their potential impacts on the health of residents in the surrounding areas. While the report was handed over in June, this week the state government released it and announced how they would respond. The report found that there were multiple physical and mental health impacts and said that the odour did not need to be at toxic levels to impact health. There was no increased risk of cancer to the residents exposed to the smells, however. One key finding was that existing laws may not support effective assessment, management and enforcement to lessen odour. Recommendations made include these. The state government has said they will accept all recommendations. A dedicated committee will be established to oversee the implementation of the recommendations, and there will be ongoing consultation and engagement with the community and industry. Sadder news is that one of the last remaining drive-in cinemas has closed. The Tivoli closed last weekend. Faced with the choice of either needing a potential $1 million worth of upgrades or selling, with the dwindling demand, it wasn't really a choice. The good news is that the drive-in area has been purchased by a developer with the plan to build housing on the site. The drive-in had been run by Goodness Enterprises and had tried to keep ticket prices low to provide struggling families with affordable entertainment. They also supported unemployed and disadvantaged young people by providing paid training opportunities in the cinema's kitchen. The Tivoli's closure means that the drive-in cinema at Yatala is the last remaining drive-in in southeast Queensland. Seaweed beer, anyone? Moreton Bay is honouring its 33-year relationship with the Japanese city Sanyo Onada with a custom-designed craft lager. Produced by hip-hop brewers in Brendale, the Tomodachi lager is a Japanese-style rice lager with a hint of yuzu citrus. It also has subtle seaweed notes. The seaweed, in this case sea lettuce, was supplied by the University of the Sunshine Coast and grows naturally in Moreton Bay. It's also popular in Japan, making it the perfect ingredient to highlight the connection between Moreton Bay and Sanyo Onada. Perhaps the story that's had the most attention over the last week or two from Moreton Bay is the development application that has been lodged for a $2.5 billion tourism city called Infinity Planet in Alimba. The ambitious project features 2 precincts, a tourism and entertainment precinct and a business and innovation precinct. The site will include a multi-activity indoor and outdoor theme park, 3 accommodation towers, a glamping resort, an art mall and a cultural mall, all connected by landscaped plazas and promenades. In addition, there are plans for office and research spaces, as well as education facilities. It's due to be completed by 2030, and there's too much to cover about it in this video, so it's on the list of topics to explore in their own dedicated video over the next few months. Stay tuned. There's a couple of updates regarding sporting infrastructure in Moreton Bay as well. The 3-kilometre Lagoon Road mountain bike trails in Burpengary have officially opened, and construction is about to begin on a new accessible softball clubhouse at Talabilla Park. It's expected to be completed next year. For those following the Brisbane Channel's Instagram account, you would have seen that preliminary designs have been released for 4 new stations as part of the Logan to Gold Coast Faster Rail project. This includes a plan to build Woodridge Station as an elevated station, freeing up street-level space below the station. Currabee Station will get a new footbridge, lift and stairs to better connect communities either side of the rail corridor. Trinder Park Station and the Park and Ride will be relocated, and the Trinder Park level crossing will be replaced by a road over rail bridge. Kingston Station's design will help it better integrate with the Kingston Butter Factory Cultural Precinct. Community feedback is open until the 19th of December on all of these plans, and I've put a link in the video description for you to have your say. Okay, that's it for the factual updates. Now it's time for me to give my 2 cents. As always, this is very much just to stimulate a conversation, not to tell you that my opinions are more valid than anyone else's, and in this case, I'm sure I'll learn something from some of the responses. The issue I'd like to bring up is Brisbane's bus network changes, and my response to some of the things I've heard people saying about them. As a regular user of the bus network, I'm speaking partly from personal experience, but also the experience of someone who's lived in multiple cities both here and overseas, relying entirely on public transport in all of them. I think that recent changes to the bus network are certainly not all good or all bad, and I really hope we can give credit where credit's due while not losing sight of the major shortcomings our public transport system still experiences. One of the issues we've had for a long time is that there's been so much overlap between different services, whether train or bus, that has added to congestion on our busways and reduced the effectiveness and efficiency of the public transport system as a whole. I feel that some of the recent changes to the bus network have been an attempt to reduce that redundancy. So instead of everyone taking a bus from their home all the way into the city, they may take a bus partway, then transfer to another bus for the rest of the journey. That way we have fewer buses all travelling along the same busway. It's part of what we call a trunk and feeder system, where there's main arterial routes, such as the path of the busways, and then smaller routes that connect to that, to bring people to that main trunk route. I can see that having higher capacity and more frequent buses, such as the metro buses travelling along those trunk routes, makes sense, and especially if that frees up buses that would normally follow that route to then serve more feeder routes. And that explains why congestion along parts of the busway, particularly around the cultural centre, has been improving since the introduction of the metro bus routes. And I'll be honest, I get a little bit annoyed when I hear about people complaining that they now need to transfer on their route rather than taking a single bus all the way. I can appreciate that for some people who have mobility issues, it can be problematic getting on and off buses more. But for the average commuter, if you can't handle your journey having multiple legs and a transfer or two, maybe it's time to swallow some cement mix and you know the rest. Our city covers such a massive geographical area compared to most other cities, and even in those smaller cities, transfers are a normal part of life. I feel that some of the negativity toward changes of our network are due to the inability to accept change, or to understand that small decreases in convenience may actually have a big positive impact on the city overall. But I am aware that some people have found that they can't get off at a stop they used to be able to because the metro bus is too long to stop there and council don't want to make changes to the platforms. Others have found that while their routes now connect them to a metro bus, they're not travelling all the way into the city and the metro doesn't stop at the stop their original bus used to stop at. There's definitely some shortcomings in the changed network. But the biggest issue I have with the network overall is that, one, it's still very much weighted on moving people into and out of the CBD, while most journeys require movement within and between suburbs. And these are often not easily done using the current routes. And 2, there were areas that were previously already not well served, and the changes to the network did not change the situation in those areas. Remember, before these changes, only 1 in 3 Greater Brisbane residents had access to frequent, reliable public transport, with good coverage ending just 8 kilometres from the Brisbane city centre. The metro buses have presented a great opportunity to improve service in those areas previously not served by reallocating buses no longer needed for the trunk routes, but so far it seems that has not really happened. And remember that in a recent update we found that over the next 3 years there'll actually be fewer buses in Brisbane City's fleet as vehicles that are retired outnumber new buses introduced. So my overall opinion is that the bus network is better in some ways, but there are still some gaping holes that need to be addressed. But it's a very complex issue, particularly when it's not just one city we're talking about. While Greater Brisbane is made up of 5 local government areas, they still function as one really big city in many ways. Many of us live in one LGA but work in another, and the transport throughout Greater Brisbane needs to serve people from multiple LGAs. It's something far too complex for me to deal with, so I am planning to try to understand the situation in a more objective and informed way by drawing on the knowledge of people who have far more passion for being across all of these issues. I have a video in the very early planning stages that will analyse the bus network across Greater Brisbane, how the different LGAs work together to serve this massive geographical area, what we're doing well, and what really needs to improve. It won't be out soon, most likely in the first quarter of 2026, but I've already started connecting with the people and organisations that can help shed some light on the situation. That's all I've got for you for now. See ya.